to 1:30 in the morning chats with Catherine. So I am currently sitting in my bed with a bunch of memory cards, all my electronic, so to speak, devices. Well, where do I begin? A couple days ago, I was recording this podcast, or what was to be this episode, but I somehow didn't record it because the memory card that I was using wasn't being nice. It wasn't playing nice with me. It was not being compatible with my Zoom PodTrack recorder. And so this was also on a day of my period when I was absolutely exhausted, okay? And none of it recorded. What did I speak about? I don't remember, because once I figured out that it wasn't recording, I was pissed off and I felt exhausted, and I didn't record any longer because I literally did not have the energy. Since I've been trying to find my card reader for my laptop, my SD card reader, and I couldn't find it. And then all of my SD cards were being weird. And then I also, to control my consumption of the internet, I block myself from the internet after a certain time. And so since it's after midnight, I couldn't get onto the internet or certain apps on my computer to reset the SD cards. So we finally figured it out. I don't know what I did. I just did something, and now we're back. And if I am correct, yes, this is recording. It's been almost 2.5 minutes, and it seems to be recording. So fingers crossed that this goes well. The first episode, I guess this is, I don't know if I call it first episode season 2. Takes 2. I think I called it Takes 2 because we're taking 2. We're trying this all over again with the podcast thing. Side note, this week someone told me, and I get told this very often, that I have a really good radio voice and that I need to be in radio. And I was just like, I didn't tell them I had a podcast. Maybe I will when I see them next, but I get told that often. People are like, I really love your voice. You have a really great radio voice. But bitch, maybe I have a really good podcast voice. So that's what we're doing here. I'm probably talking quieter than normal because it's 1:30 in the morning and people are asleep. So we have to be respectful and not be loud, because I am known to talk very, very loud. If you know, you know. Yeah, where did we leave off last week? Last week, I was talking about my artist statement and where I wanted to go with that. And I still don't completely have the answer, but that I think was one of the things that has helped me to narrow it down. Also, I've just been observing others. I look at other artists and see what they include or don't include in their artist statement. And I guess on that kind of genre, on that niche topic about art, this week I was going to a lot of or different graduate studio or MFA open house, quote unquote, online, where they just have a Zoom meeting and they present to you about the program. One of the profs talks about some classes, students talk about their experience. You gotta ask questions and all that shit. And you know me, I like to ask questions. I like to talk. I like to hear myself talk, and I like to have conversations with people, which makes sense why I get a lot out of just speaking into a microphone by myself in my room when nobody is here with me. I really like talking. Anyways, I had some really good conversations, and there was a few things that stuck out to me. In particular, one artist and a graduate of the MFA program at OCAD was talking about, because I asked a question about, in your letters of intention and in your letters of recommendation and like in this like proposal, so to speak, you know, how do you refine down those ideas? Because that's something that I definitely see that I struggle with, not only in my artist statement, but in my practice overall. And he was like, well, yeah, the advice that he had gotten from his advisor and he shared with me was, your MFA project, your exhibition, your thesis, whatever it is, wherever you are, it's just one project. Like, it's one part of such a larger picture, and you don't have to do everything all at once in this one thing. It's one project, and then you have the opportunities to do more and build and create off that. And that was like a really great reminder to me to be like, oh right, like it doesn't have to answer everything, or not all of it, not all of my ideas have to be put into this MFA or this project. And that was really cleared my mind a little bit, even about just like other things in my art practice. And what was the other thing he was saying? Oh, I guess this is a saying. If you've heard the saying, maybe you haven't, I don't know. I have not heard this, but because OCAD is like a art and design school, so there's a lot of like interdisciplinary creatives that exist there, like from architecture to like pottery, right? Big differences, but also a lot of similarities. I guess a saying that goes around there is that design or art makes problems and design fixes them. And he made a good point talking about how art doesn't make the problems, it just like calls them out. And I've never heard art described in that way before. And I might have talked about this last time, but I've been going to these lectures with the AGO and this one artist that I can't remember the name of, and he was talking about how like when you're making art in creating art, it will always create pain, or there's always going to be something problematic about art in the way they're creating. Like, you know, you can't not have that, but you also can't not make art, because art is essential to life. We need art. It is so vital to our human existence. It's so unique to being human. And I just kind of saw this through line between, you know, like art, maybe it is disrupting, maybe it is causing problems in some way, or it's just calling out the problems that already exist in a unique way, and it's really not there to give answers and provide solutions, but it's there to sit alongside the other aspects in which that change does happen, whether that's in, like, if you look at it in like government policy, or if that's in protest, or whatever form that influence and those questions have on whoever is the observer and the intaker of that art, I think is what's important. And I think that's why I like art and creating so much, and also being a consumer of art, because of the inspiration that it can provide. Another really good thing that I've been thinking of is how, and this is like a sentiment that I'm sure you've heard across the board, nobody's gonna make it the way you need to make it. And I think that's the same sentiment as, you're not gonna like everybody and everybody's not gonna like you. Like, not everybody's gonna like your artwork. Some people are gonna fucking hate it, some people are gonna love it. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Maybe nobody likes your work, maybe everyone hates it, but at the end of the day, that is the role of art. It's to call out some emotion in the people that are observing it and consuming it. At the end of it, that's what it is. And I think we live in a very unique world today where most of the world, I forget the exact percentage, and I don't currently have access to Google because I'm addicted and I locked myself out of it, but a majority of the world has access to the internet. And the internet and social media specifically, it is a crazy place, but equally also just like reflects our society in back to us. But at the same, and on top of that, it also is like siloed. I might have talked about this before, but like the idea that social media and media, it's gonna show you more of what you're seeking out, give you back what you're looking for, that confirmation bias, the silo kind of realm. It's like an echo chamber, like whatever you're putting out and seeking, and it's going to give more and more of that back to you. I wrote this down earlier today. We live in a time when culture and influence has been chosen for us, and it's not even like it's not one person that is choosing the discourse that we consume, the content we consume. We're choosing it for each other, but then also it's being influenced by like just data and marketing and data analytics, and so many forces that are outside of our control, which if you think about how that reflects in life, it's like, yeah, our world, you don't have a lot of control over most things. You only have control over yourself. And I guess the same exists online. Like, you only have control over what you do in that world, what you consume, what you say, what you choose to let impact you and make you feel a certain way. And so it's the same, it's just in a different world, in a different dimension. And sorry, I don't even know what this podcast episode is going to be about, frankly. I think it's just me yapping, kind of talking about art more, I guess. Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about, art and the art stuff that's going on for me. But so anyways, side note here, and then we'll get back to where I was going. Honestly, I need to like write down before I start talking what topic I'm on, so I can look back to be like, oh yes, where's this full circle story going? But I was just thinking about, even in our day-to-day life, like even while I'm speaking right now in this moment, I don't know exactly what I'm gonna say next. I maybe have a general idea of things. Actually, honestly, right now I know I don't. I didn't prepare much. I've thought about things, so in my head there is like some things that I know I want to talk about. I've probably got some notes on my phone, but this isn't a presentation. I didn't prepare. There's no notes. I didn't memorize lines. I'm just yapping away. Each moment that we speak in life is that pinpoint of creativity. We live in a very unique time in how we communicate and consume, especially in our digital culture. Oh my god, and this just reminded me of another amazing, and of course you can tell, like, all my references are things that I've read or seen on the internet, but so you know, this is my, like, if you want to know me, listen to this podcast and you will find out what my niche, what my feeds look like. Oh my god, so many ideas in my head right now. What is it about the middle of the night? So one was, there was this dude and he was talking about, I have to find it, he was talking about what the internet will be. It's like one day it's like not gonna exist, and we'll refer to this time as like a digital psychosis. And I was like, holy shit, that is such a good analogy for what this time is. Like, if you've ever traveled abroad and then you come home and it feels like your trip didn't even happen, like, we will have this collective, when and if that time happens, of the internet not existing, we'll have this collective psychosis. Like, it'll be but like, you'll try and explain it, but like, you can't. If it doesn't exist, you'll never really be able to formulate exactly what that experience was. It won't ever be able to be replicated or explained. If somebody wasn't on it, we would probably just like collectively talk about this time that we spent online in these digital worlds and reflect and really be able to truly understand that time. I really, really do think you can't really understand how something impacts you until it's gone. Only at that time will we understand how truly and deeply addicted to the internet that we all are. And just like the interwebs and media. Where was I going with this? I don't remember. I was talking about, my art practice. So that's kind of what's going on in my mind recently. coming back to, I guess, like, been looking at MFA programs. Do I want to go into doing an MFA? I've finished up this other 407 art project. That was interesting. Made an art piece out of entirely made of recycled plastic, picked up during litter cleanups. But yeah, back to, so my MFA, like, yeah, I want to do it because I think it'll really help my practice. I kind of have now my sights set on OCAD. I think I wanted to go there when I was younger, but I really just don't think I had the confidence or the artistic ability at that time. I probably did, I just didn't have a portfolio going, and I honestly don't think maybe I could have put one together, but like I think my skill, my head just like wasn't in that place. I was like very much into partying. I don't think I really exactly knew what I wanted to do, and I think my story arc, I'm figuring that out more now, and how much more I don't see another path for me in my life except being a creative, being an artist. Like, I have to create. I need to be using my hands and my mind to just be the creator, and I don't want to do that I don't want to do it for someone else. I really don't. I need to do it for myself and without any other influence. I do think maybe I need a bit more of a box, which is why I'm like, oh, an MFA would help. I need a little bit of a box, because sometimes I think I exist where there aren't any, where I try and don't give myself any boxes or certain limitations. I kind of have really, really flexible boundaries in my art practice, which I think has some benefits but also has some hindrances. You know, that's probably one of my biggest criticisms or challenges, where I'm like, oh, I want to go in that, in like, for example, like the corporate box. Do I want to like have a really particular known art style and sell my art to be in homes and make art for what I know is likable? And I definitely do that. I definitely have done that, and I definitely still do it. But there's also part of me that's just like, I just want to make what I want to make, and I want to make things that are a bit more disrupting and really punch you in the face in a way, something that you see it, or you, whatever part of it rocks you to the core. I really want to do that, and I think that's when art is powerful, when it's super inspiring, or it hits you in some way, like something unexplainable, and it sparks a new idea, or it makes you go, whoa, like that's what I want to do. And sometimes I think in like really cute, pleasing art, or just certain aesthetics that you see online, like you might not get that in the same way. However, I do also, like, I love an abstract art piece. I love staring at the clouds and seeing images in them, and staring at the popcorn ceiling in my room. And honestly, I need to fucking stare at a wall more. There's funny, I'm like, did I talk about this in my first podcast, or did I talk about this in my second one? My second one that didn't get recorded, and now we're recording now. There's this psychiatrist who's also, I believe he was a monk, or he studied, oh, I'm getting this wrong, he just meditated a bunch and like studied in India, and his name is Dr. K, and he's a YouTuber, and he specifically is like targeting like gamers and that niche in the mental health world, because he himself is a gamer. But he's like, yo, you just need to fucking stare at a wall, or just need to be fucking bored, and you can't have any in your meditation practice. It can't be like a challenge. Setting like this big goal for yourself needs to just exist without being for anything greater other than you just sat and meditated. And it's not a competition, it's not to level, it's just for existing and just being, just fucking lying there, sitting there, focusing on your breath. Like that's it. Don't make it something bigger than it needs to be. And I resonate with that so much, because I think I think we all are, especially in the culture that we live in today. I don't know where you live, but I live in Canada, and Canada's culture is greatly influenced by the States. it's just greatly, I mean, I think there's like this homogenization sometimes that I feel that exists in the world, especially with the internet and how we are so connected and how there's so much fucking information all the time. There's so many incoming messages, and not only are the incoming messages hustle, sleep when you die, also I just think the amount of information that we receive on a daily basis is insane. I remember I did a postgraduate certificate in marketing management, and I remember one of my classes in a marketing class, or no, it was advertising, we learned about like how many images or ads you see in a day, and I remember being like a fucking absurd amount. And that, I'm pretty sure, was just like ads, not all the ads and influence that we are now exposed to on TikTok, because this was when I went right when TikTok was starting to get big. Obviously, the information in that textbook was not up to date, especially with the influence of TikTok. I think it has really changed the scope of how we consume now with having reels on Instagram. Like, we didn't used to have that. That didn't exist. And honestly, I don't even remember, like, what did the Instagram used to look like? Now there's reels fucking everywhere. There's videos on every platform. On YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, sorry, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Like, it's fucking everywhere, man. And the infinite scroll, this is another interesting fact. The guy that figured out the infinite scroll, when you like have to like turn a page or, you know, flip to the next page on a website, it lets your brain know you completed a task, but the infinite scroll like overrides that, steps into like, yeah, it surpasses that kind of wiring in our brain of like, oh, task done. So we just like zone the fuck out, if you want to think of it as hypnosis. I don't know if you want to call it something else, but those states when you're kind of just kind of like a zombie, just, I want to say it's a type of flow state. You know, when you drive home and you don't really remember the drive, but you got there because you're so used to driving that way, or when you're watching TV and you're so absorbed and you're distracted. I also think this it kind of exists on a spectrum. Like, I fall into it when I'm creating, sometimes when I'm painting or doing other things, when you're reading a book, or when you're consuming media. You know, those are, I think, are like very sensitive times in hypnosis. Hypnosis is basically like getting yourself into those states of consciousness. Another time that those states of consciousness are more heightened is when you first wake up and first fall asleep. You're in like this between sort of state. It's not, you're conscious, but you're still like, you're kind of just like absorbing and not really too, I guess, analyzing the information that's incoming. And in hypnosis, you would use it to stop smoking, improve your confidence, or some sort of thing that you want to change internally, and you would listen to that hypnosis. It's best when it's like, you know, when you first fall asleep, or they, for example, I know they have like these glasses that you can wear that are like light glasses that flash, so it kind of puts you in that trance like state. Like, if you've ever been to like a music festival, and you know, when you kind of get into that trance like state, and that's when you're like more susceptible to certain, I don't want to say you're susceptible to messages. The way that your brain is processing the incoming messages is different than when you're more alert and consciously doing a task. Anyways, but I just think it's unique that, you know, we get into that doom scrolling state, and just think of all, not even just like the ads, but just like the images and messages that are coming in. And if you want to think too, like, we could think on like one extreme of this. And I guess another side note, I guess a lot of what I'm explaining now is what I'm curious exploring in my MFA, and in my art practice, is consumerism and how that like impacts both our mental health, but also like the environment and the world, like society at large, and impacts like equity and equality and oppression and inequality. Anyways, all that stuff. Anyways, so coming back to this point, like, if you think of every message that is being shared, for example, what I am doing right now, my podcast would fall into this. You know, posting a picture of your Stanley water jug, or posting a picture of you in Thailand. Each of these serves as like a quote unquote like ad for our personal lives of kind of sharing our own quote unquote messages to our quote unquote followers. And I'm just going to use a biblical reference here because that's what comes to mind. And I was brought up going to like a Christian church and Christian camp, and that's kind of the first kind of religion that I came to know before I started reading and discovering other religions and what purpose religion serves in the world, which is a whole nother subject. Anyways, it's like if you think of people who are like followers of a certain religion or like followers of Jesus Christ or Christianity, and like on Instagram or whatever social platform, we each have our own followers, quote unquote, right? So in that way, we are each kind of influencing and advertising to the people that watch what we're sharing. Everyone that is consuming or sees what we're consuming is influencing them in one way or another. Modern day marketing and advertising, I think it's so complex. Like, so much money is spent on marketing and advertising. It is insane, the amount of money, and I'm sure in some cases it's way bigger than I can even imagine, depending on the budget and the company and what it's for. It's fucking huge what people pay just to have a logo somewhere, to have a commercial somewhere, to have content, have someone endorse some. I think we even see it in like the election that's happening in the States, of just how one public figure can influence, share something, and it is instantly impacts the whole election and country at large, which is wild. But that is the nature of each of us having our own influence and impact on the world, no matter the size that it is. Just to take back to when I studied sociology. So in Soc, and the reason I studied sociology, one, because it was I found it really easy for me, or easier, I should say, than other subjects. I really liked Soc and anthropology. I also like psych, but I did find it difficult, so I didn't go down that route. And in Soc, I remember we took this one class called The Individual in Society. We would talk about things like how when you're in a big city, your body physically is like incapable of smiling and like having an interaction with everybody you pass. It's just, you literally could not do that. That would be so physically and emotionally exhausting. And so in order to exist in a city, you have the blasé attitude, which is like, you're just like to yourself, you're not smiling, you don't acknowledge people, and just going along your merry way. But one thing interesting in that class, I remember I wanted to talk about social media and its role in society. I'm sure more research exists now, definitely it does. We didn't talk about it because it was that's not society, that's like something different, that's another extension in a different way. Like the same, we wouldn't talk about like people and their interaction in cars, because obviously that's a point of where people have a lot of rage. But anyway, so like, and I'm sure so many people have heard it, the people that you spend, like the 5 people that you spend the most time with are going to influence you the most. And for sure that's true. Whoever you're spending your time with, talking to, and how they live and what they do is definitely going to influence you. The way that your parents lived and grew up, that is going to impact you. Your environment will form you throughout your life. Now, when we're on the interwebs, when you're on social media, we have so much more access to people and information than we ever did before. I truly think that we're all just addicted to this. Not just on the individual level, but the societal level. I think like our society is addicted to this, and I think it's so ingrained with money and our jobs and food. It's just like, I think it crosses into every realm of our existence, and I think we're deeply addicted. And I don't know if I'm not commenting on it being good or bad. I think it is what it is, and I think it's the state that we're in. And I really think that as like if you look at like addictions and the study of it, there's honestly numerous approaches, and that's a topic that I'm not completely well versed in. I know a decent amount from personal experience and from reading, but there's so much more that I can learn also like cross-culturally. But when you are relying on something, it clouds your mind, making you believe that you need that thing. Like that's the only thing that will give you that peace and that clarity, and will give you that, for like, you know, for me it was like that escape. I just think, yeah, the internet is a really big thing for us all collectively, and I definitely exist in that space. I am one of them. I am a follower. I follow so many people. I am influenced by so many people. I consume so much, and I do see how it impacts my personal mental health, my relationship with it, which is crazy to say. It's this relationship that we have with it. Also the idea, like, I'm sure people have seen like Keen and Peele, the skit where they're like texting each other and one is like super happy and the other one's pissed off. Eventually he like shows up and he's gonna like hit his friend with like a bat, and then his buddy's like, hey buddy, it's so good to see you, and he's like confused, and then he realized, like, you know, it's like they read the messages differently. And I think it really speaks again to like how we are like self-reflection in media, and how it's just like a reflection of ourselves. Like when you're reading a message online, unless you really know who it is that you're talking to, like especially with like social, like dating, like social dating apps, you have no idea what that person's character is like. Like you'll be reading it like yourself, not like them, because you don't know them. So you're just projecting, whether it's you like who you imagine them to be and what they imagine to be to you. Anyways, my bed, let me double check. Is this recording? Yes, it is. It is been 35 minutes at the moment. I don't know how long this will be. And you know what? I don't care. We're gonna just do whatever the fuck I want. Because that's what I decided. I'm not getting a little bit of a headache. I don't know why. So I've had long COVID now since November 2022, and it has been a huge learning experience for me. One second. Removing stuff from my bed so I can shortly go to bed. Honestly, it's been crazy. I think maybe I'll do that in like the next episode, because I'm starting to get tired. And next time I come on here, just talk about what my experience with long COVID has been, and like how it's not really a new phenomenon. It's just how we are currently, I guess that's the current term to understand it. This isn't new. Like longer term symptoms from a viral infection has happened before. But man, it is wild, I will tell you. It has changed my physical abilities and mental abilities, I guess, to some extent as well, yeah. Compared to what they used to be like pre-COVID. And honestly, I am really trying to use this, or to see it as a blessing. I'm trying to see it as a blessing and as a sign from the universe to slow down. And you know what? I'm finding it very difficult to do that. I feel like I've been running at full speed my entire life, and now my body's telling me to rest. And what do I want to do? I just want to go on the internet and distract myself. But this isn't like a regular type of sickness. It is impacting your whole body and your mind, and it's wild because it's all to do with like your nervous system, how you deal with stress, and it affects so many different things and so many different people, and amplifies like just different symptoms in different individuals. Yeah, wow, it's wild. I honestly don't, if you've never experienced this or something like it, it's so hard to understand or explain, which I mean I think goes for anybody's unique experience. Yeah, it really impacts how I've been living, and one thing that, as much as I have all these ideas, like, I think this is what I'm really struggling with right now, is I have all these ideas flowing through me, and so much that I want to create and so much that I want to do, but my physical body is not capable of doing everything that I want to in this moment. It's like the world, the universe is screaming at me, slow down, like, chill out, rest. And by rest, I mean literally, like I was saying earlier, lie down and stare at a wall, lie down outside, stare at the ceiling, focus on breathing from your diaphragm, and don't go on the internet that long, don't work on a bunch of projects, don't take on anything new, don't do too much, just like really, really, really rest, like truly rest. And I feel like have lucky to have the support of my parents to be in my current situation. So I think as much as it's brought me a lot of sadness and confusion, it's also brought me more gratitude and the desire to practice more gratitude. I relate this experience most to when I was first trying to quit drinking, and it would take me, like, at first it'd be like a week. I would be able to stop drinking for like a week, and then I would start drinking again, and then I would go 2 weeks, and then I couldn't do it, and then I'd keep drinking again, and then it'd be 3 weeks. I eventually got to the point where I don't do it anymore, which is amazing. And so I do think it's just like a repetition of doing it repeatedly and failing repeatedly and just being absurdly persistent in always coming back to, okay, let's just lie down in the grass and say everything that I'm grateful for until it overflows out of me and there's nothing else there to do except feel more gratitude. Then I forget for a couple days, and then I get on it again, and I forget, and I get on it. Same with rest. Some days I'm better at resting, some days I'm not. And I think it's just learning a completely new way of living and existing, and I think it's also helping me to define my boundaries better, knowing what truly I really want to do, what truly is super important to me, and that aligns with like my values and my path and like where I want to go, but also simultaneously like letting go and just being like, okay, like whatever happens, and not trying to stay too fixated on what happens, just kind of control what I can control. Grant me, like the serenity prayer, which I think maybe is it from the Bible, but if you ever are in the rooms of like AA, NA, Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Instead of God, insert whatever higher power you have. This is a little lesson from those rooms. Your higher power could be the ocean. It could be the universe. It could be the moon, the sun, the stars. It could be God, or just something that is bigger than you. It could be the Amazon rainforest. It could be, I don't know, the continent of North America. Whatever you want it to be. Whatever you choose it to be. It doesn't have to be religious or spiritual. It could be secular. It can be scientific. Just the fact of like, what is literally bigger than you? It could be just like understanding that you are not the one in control. All of life is happening for us, not to us. We get to experience this. You have to view it as like a gift, and I think it's impossibly hard sometimes to view it that way, and I definitely don't think of it that way all the time. The times that I do, and when I find and come back to that headspace more and more often, I find a little bit more peace in my life, which honestly is all I truly want, and that's all I truly want for you, anyone listening, everyone in the world, is to find more moments of peace within themselves, because then I truly believe that's how we can make a difference, is by changing ourselves, because at the end of the day, that is all that we truly have influence over, is what we choose to do. You can force somebody to do something, but it's not the way that things really stick. It's not the way that energy flows, you just gotta know what you can change, and a lot of the time that's just yourself, your reactions, your decisions. Yeah. Anyways, this episode was random. This was episode 2. I have so many more ideas. I think this was just me really wanting to get on the microphone again. Another side note. I heard recently, it's something like most podcasts don't get past the 3rd episode or something like that, and technically I've probably gotten past the 3rd episode, but I haven't posted it online in the podcast world. So yeah, I just want to keep speaking into this microphone because I enjoy it. It's kind of therapeutic, just like creating art. Sometimes you just gotta talk it out, Okay. Have a good day. Have a good night. Have a good life. Bye.